So I'm the CEO of GSTC, Global Sustainable Tourism Council, and I'm going to speak this morning first to start the conference by talking about who is GSTC. The title of the presentation is GSTC's mission and current activities. So I've got something in this presentation for everyone. If you're new to GSTC, I'm going to tell you the basics of who we are, and if you've been with us, some updates on what's happening. So who are we as an organization? What is this GSTC? Well, we were created in the year 2007 as an NGO by the United Nations system. We're separate from the UN, but we were created by the UN system. Lead agencies on point were UNEP, now UN Environment, and UNWTO, with tremendous support from the conservation community. Conservation International, WWF, has always been close to us on a formal basis. Rainforest Alliance, one of our founders, and UN Foundation. And it was created in 2007. And thank you very much. And just before we came into existence, the UN agencies involved developed this definition of sustainable tourism in the year 2005. And it's a very interesting one, and I think it holds up. Most academics in the world use this as the go-to, the agreed upon definition, one sentence definition of sustainable tourism. And what's interesting is that, of course, we talk about the environment, but we're talking about social issues and cultural issues in this definition. And look at the term host communities. That was rather progressive in 2005. We weren't talking about that so much. So I think it's a very good comprehensive definition. Also that year, this is something that's rather forgotten about, I think, is that they created the 12 aims of sustainable tourism. And I encourage you to search online and look at those 12 aims of sustainable tourism, because when we were created 2 years later, the first thing we did, as Mr. Cabrini mentioned, we created the GSTC criteria for hotels and tour operators. We started our work in 2007. We released the first criteria in 2008. They were really based upon those 12 aims as a framework, but a highly inclusive process. These are baseline standards for the world that are global. The process of developing and revising the standards follows the highest international norms for creation of standards and revision of standards. So these are not Western standards. These are not standards from a couple of academics in the community, in the committee. This was a highly inclusionary process from all 6 populated continents, from private sector, public sector, NGOs, academia, really all stakeholders. Anyone in this room, anyone in the world is welcome to submit input into the revision of our criteria, a highly inclusive process. So we started in 2008 with the hotel and tour operator criteria. We've revised them 2 times, in 2012 and 2016. At the revision in 2016, we renamed them to call them the industry criteria, replacing hotel and tour operator, with the idea that this would be an umbrella, and perhaps in the future, we have an architecture system now that in the future we may add other subsectors. We do not have any imminent plans to do so, but we created the structure so that if we wanted to create criteria indicators for other subsectors of travel and tourism. Note that we don't have aviation. We're focused on these 3 core areas of accommodations, and we should say accommodations rather than hotels, because we're more holistic than that. Hospitals and so forth are included in this. And tour operators, we use the term tour operator very broadly to include any packager of travel, any provider of travel, any seller of travel. So any other terms you may use, travel agent, and so forth. Transport providers all fit into this framework. So tour operator, very, very broad group of small and large different types. So now they call it the GSTC industry criteria, and then in 2013 we released the destination criteria. The destination criteria are an excellent set of tools for the public sector on 2 levels. One, on a very practical management level for destination management, and secondly at the policy level. And we're seeing them used throughout the world at the municipal level, provincial, state, national, various levels as policy guidelines. The GSTC criteria are in the public domain free of charge for the non-commercial use. It's our gift to the world. We're intensely mission-driven. That the core of our mission is to disseminate the GSTC criteria, because We believe that the GSTC criteria are the best long definition. If you went to WTO and UNEP created that one-sentence definition of sustainable tourism in 2005, we like to think of this inclusive process that we manage, gathering all the input from experts and stakeholders throughout the world, that the GSTC criteria are the best, most trusted, in a sense, comprehensive, long definition of sustainable tourism. I think that if we surveyed everyone in this room, or anyone in tourism, and asked the question, what is sustainable tourism? We'd get as many answers as people we asked. It's greatly misunderstood because it's broad and it's deep. And so we take great pride in managing a process that we, again, think that is indeed inclusionary and provides that sense of a detailed definition of sustainability. It's lovely to be here in Botswana. We've been working with BTO for many years. So thank you, Friends of BTO, for hosting us. I have on the screen just a reference to what we call early adopter. So when we created the destination criteria, released them formally in 2013, we asked 14 destinations around the world, only 14 in the big globe that we have. And BTO stepped forward and used their work in development of Okabanga Delta as one of those early adopters. So our good friend Richard Molesu and the team has been working with us for many years. Richard presented to us in 2014 at our conference in Bonito, Brazil. And so what those early adopters did, including this project, was that they helped us field test and develop the final drafts of the destination criteria. So BTO was very much engaged in that process, and we thank you for that. But as Richard and others at BTO have stated, it's been a tremendous assistance to BTO. I remember distinctly in April of 2014, Richard stated that they were just getting World Heritage inscription at that time for the Okabanga Delta. And Richard told us that going through the GSTC process of the detail, the discipline of going through the checklist of the criteria helped them even with their World Heritage inscription application and helped them tremendously just frame up all the work that they do. So they've been very actively, a very good case of actively from the start, from even before the start, the GSTC criteria putting it into place. So the first revision is now underway. And so we're just now launching a public consultation. So again, anyone in the world can submit input. We're especially interested in going beyond the digital divide to disadvantaged communities that may not normally have access to such input. So if there's any way that you can, through your cascading into your networks, and do some surveying and asking stakeholders in tourism that may not be on this side of the digital divide timely, provide that input and identify it as such. You can go onto our website and enter the GSTC criteria section of our website and see the piece about revision. And it would be a tremendous support to us to get your input, but get input of others, especially those who are not attending conferences like this in a lovely room like this today. They're based on the 4 pillars of looking beyond just environment and sustainability, the social side of tourism. Tourism has tremendous power for poverty reduction and economic development and social good, doesn't it? And as Mr. Cabrini said in his opening remarks, we frame the criteria with the language of maximize the positive and minimize the negative. So we're not just looking at what you don't do, but let's do more of the good, positive elements. And that includes economic sustainability, as he emphasized in his remarks. So I don't have any samples of what the criteria look like. Again, they're in the public domain on our website. We encourage you to download them, use them as training material, as awareness raising, and disseminate them broadly. It's very encouraging. I prance around the world. I buy carbon offsets for all my flights, by the way, and working absolutely globally. I won't even begin to try to tell you where I've been this past calendar year. But everywhere we go, it's so encouraging to hear somebody say, yeah, we've been using the GSTC criteria for 8 years, and we had no idea, no connection. I mean, they've really made impacts. They're used formally in many levels, and they're used informally in just absolutely countless ways. Probably should have chronicled all these comments we've gotten over the years because it's absolutely remarkable. A word on language. Maybe it's unfortunate that in the English language we've used this phrase, sustainable tourism, because some people hear that and think you're describing something as highly sustainable. We would argue there is no sustainable travel or tourism today. That we're all on a journey, and as Luigi Cabrini emphasized, it's a process, we need continuous improvement, conditions change, it's a mindset, it's a commitment, and so we look at it, we like to use the phrase at GSTC that sustainability is a journey, and that's in line with last year's UN statement, WTO statement, the International Year of Tourism for Development last year, of emphasizing that point. It's not a specific type of tourism, and nobody can claim to be the champion. It's a process. We all have to get better. The SDGs have been mentioned. Very prominent, of course, in public policy and in planning globally. We have on our website the GSTC criteria mapped to the SDGs in both directions. You can go through the 17 SDGs and then click through how on each of the 17 you can access a specific GSTC criteria, and the other way around, from the criteria to the SDGs. So you can use the GSTC criteria as the detail and the action planning for supporting the SDGs in tourism. The tool is built for you. UNWTO has that on our website as well, with a lot of planning and so forth. So we've got the criteria matched to it, and UNWTO has tools to match the SDGs in tourism. I put this slide out for this reason. Many of you are experts in standards, and some of you are not. Just as a reminder, so the GSTC criteria are a set of standards. Why do we have standards? Well, often when we think about standards, we think of certification. They are indeed used as a basis for certification. Electrical devices like the one I'm speaking through probably has some sort of stamp to show that it's safe to plug into the wall and you won't die from doing so. So all sorts of things are certified for safety and so forth, and health and hygiene and various things. And a set of standards is the checklist. It's the basis for certifying something. But I think most importantly for us in tourism is for us to think of the GSTC criteria as an awareness-raising tool for the reasons stated. It's got breadth, sustainability into travel and tourism. It's a little understood. So many people around the world are doing one or two things well and neglecting others. So are they sustainable? If they're doing two or three things well and one or two things not at all? No, this is why I don't think any destination, any business is fully sustainable. It's a process, and so let's think of them first and foremost as a tool for awareness raising and for education and training. Any sort of standard can then be a voluntary set of standards, can be guidelines or regulatory codes. Measurement and evaluation. I don't think we've done so well in the past on sustainable tourism, but that's rapidly changing. UNWTO now has sustainable tourism statistics that they're developing. We're getting hotel measurement roll up, and so there's been some change in the last few years. We're starting to see that. Market access clarity, what is that about? Well, I'll leave you in suspense and come back to that topic. So that was the role of standards. Why would you certify? What is the role of certification? Please understand that the work that we do at GSTC as it relates to certification, which I'm going to describe to you, is not the central focus of our organization. It's a key area of our endeavors, but it's not everything we do. But we believe deeply in certification for these reasons. When you as a business or a destination have reached the level of maturity of sustainability, to go the final distance, certification provides the discipline to get the job done, to go through the checklist. I think that's the number one. I've got number 3 in the bullet. But providing that discipline for improvement in a complete and thorough, comprehensive way is I think, just a tremendous value of certification. It helps you manage risk by understanding the breadth of some of the issues so that you know that you're managing appropriately. We could call sustainable management managing for the long term too, couldn't we? Maybe the term sustainable management will go away in 30 years, and we'll just call it good management. But today we have to call it sustainable and have a focus, and that's just why management is one of the 4 pillars of our criteria too, because at this point, at this stage of human development, we need the direction, we need the tools on managing for sustainability. And there again is that market access function. So to give you a little bit more detail on our mission and activities, let me just take you through the programs that we operate. So we have an accreditation program with our partners, ASI, Accreditation Services International. And so we do work on helping the owners of standards around the world comply with the GSTC criteria, to include them in them, to harmonize standards. We do not want the GSTC criteria to compete with any other standards in the world. We want harmonization of standards that exist. There are many, countless standards engaged in tourism for sustainability, and that creates confusion. And one of the core reasons we came into existence is to reduce that confusion by setting these baseline standards that can be a model for others to include. So it's not a choice as to whether you use this one or that one, but is it harmonized and inclusive of the GSTC criteria is the essence of that. This is a pretty new program. To date, we have these certification bodies. We know of more than 300 certification schemes in the world for hotels and accommodations. And this is a very new program, so it's a small number today. The three up on top are represented here: Vireo, Green Destinations, Travel Anchor Tour Operators. Several in the pipeline, and we expect in the next 2, 3, 4 years, we're going to see a significant number. We don't necessarily want a huge number, but we want good global coverage so that everywhere in the world there's good access to a highly credible certification. And what this is about is that these organizations have voluntarily come to us and submitted to us an intensive review, intensive and intrusive. We look at the process by which they certify and determine, is it neutral, is it competent, impartial, and a very intensive look. It takes many, many months to complete this process. So an organization that's gone through this process can be very proud, and they deserve market support because I'm telling you, we've taken a very hard look at it. We have many members of our accreditation panel here with us. It's an independent body in our organizational chart. So myself, as the Chief Executive Officer of the organization, we interact with the panel on policy and so forth, but the decisions are entirely that of the panel. They're completely independent. So we follow international norms for impartiality within ourselves, following ISO standards and so forth. So that's accreditation. And a big piece of that that's very exciting is market access that I'll be talking about. But just to go through our programs here first quickly. So, if the GSTC criteria are an excellent way, as I believe, for awareness raising and training, we have a training program that has gone global. And VTO is involved in it. We've got VTO authorized trainers, and we've had activity here, and we're going to be growing that with VTO. We have training in many languages in the world. We've got a team of Spanish language trainers, Chinese, now we have Japanese, Thai, Korean. We don't need too many other languages in Europe. English suffices. But where there's need, then we've developed it in other languages, and others are coming. So it's a global army of highly qualified trainers. We don't just let somebody walk in. We go through a rigorous process of selection. And we've been operating this for about 4 years now to great success, very high satisfaction levels of the clients, of the participants, with online classes and on-site classes. Most of the on-site are sponsored by an organization. So if you want your stakeholders to really understand the breadth and depth of sustainable tourism, you can call upon us. So we custom price everything based on local conditions and your cost structure for venue and so forth. And so that's been a big success in getting the word out and teaching sustainable tourism concepts to stakeholders of all types. It's open to any type of stakeholder. We have some customization for public sector, but we like in a class to have public sector, academics, private sector, NGOs, consultants, all mixed. They learn from each other. They share their experiences. And that's typically the way we do it. We have many other varieties. Next, market access. So what do we mean by that? We're talking about standards and certification. What's that about? And this is a very important part of our mission and goal, is to give market access to those entities that have performed at a higher level of sustainability. The SDGs have been mentioned. When you look at the 17 SDGs, here's my personal favorite SDG, responsible consumption and production. I think it really, so much of sustainability comes down to that, consumption and production. Are we producing and offering products and services that have been assembled and operated in a sustainable way, and is the purchaser of travel or any product operating in a responsible and sustainable way? So, consuming and making, consumption and production, I think it just summarizes everything in sustainability. So how do we participate in that? You've probably heard of TUI Group, the huge European giant. It's not just Europe, it's global. They have 150 brands around the world. They have joint ventures in India, Egypt, and many, many places throughout the world. I myself was the MD of a few of their brands based in the United States for several years. So they're global operation. They've been deep into taking a broad look at sustainability for the past dozen years or so. And one thing that they're doing here that's of interest, relevant here, is that they're showing preferential procurement. They want the hotels that they use in their global network to be sustainable, and they're using certification as a benchmark. That's not well known yet, because this statistic here is showing that 80%, what you may not see in the small print, 80% on the right, 80% of TUI group-owned hotels. So the hotels that TUI owns or operates are now 80% certified. We stay very close to TUI. They've been on our board of directors for a long time, and their intention is that when they reach 100%, then they're going to be more aggressive about pushing the hotels outside of their ownership network and encourage them in some way. We don't know what form that takes. They don't know what form that'll take. They have set some targets that appear here in our annual reports. By 2020, they want to get close to the 100% of in-house, and they want 10 million international travelers per year staying in hotels that are certified. I think they're about 8.3 million in 2017, something like this. So they're using the GSTC framework. So if you read the fine print, they use the GSTC framework as the basis for how they filter in that world. Then we have a breakout session during this conference on sustainable procurement. We're going to dive into these issues rather deeply. Our friend Jim Sano from WWF is here. He is very much part of this relationship. The WWF is working with Royal Caribbean on a 5-year engagement of greening their supply chain. And this is really one of the more direct and prominent examples of using the GSTC framework, which was not possible until we launched the accreditation, because what WWF recommended and Royal Caribbean agreed to is to use these kinds of eco-labels as a way to verify the credibility of their claims that their supply chain is greener. Because if a supplier has gotten certified by a certification body that's been accredited by the likes of MSC, the Marine Stewardship Council for sustainably produced fish and seafood, or GSTC for sustainably operated tour operators, that's another layer of credibility. It helps them tremendously with their internal scorecard. Imagine vast organizations like TUI or Royal Caribbean with global operations, and they want reporting upward. Certification is a nice, clean, reportable device that shows that somebody went through this long process with that deep checklist and took all that effort, and now it's a simple report that rolls up into this massive number of suppliers globally. So, Royal Caribbean does not require their tour operators, but they're showing some preferential contracting. So this is impacting tour operators all over the world that are operating in ports of sea. Now I understand Botswana is landlocked, but I'm making the point here about the system that we're building and how it's being applied. So those tour operators, if they want to extend their contract with Royal Caribbean or get their contract, they know that they're showing preference now for getting certified. So that drives them to be more sustainable. Here on a little bit smaller scale, and I think the point here of showing this Canadian company, Transat, is a company mostly of Eastern Canadian clients, but Canada-wide. They send large numbers of Canadians to the Caribbean and places around the world. and they're selecting only certified sustainable hotels. It's quite interesting that the Caribbean and Mexico have the volume to support that they're using only certified sustainable hotels. So Transat is a GSTC member and using that framework. So what I challenge you as practitioners of travel is to think about this framework. If you're involved in any way in policy, in the public sector, or in the business sector, and procurement, think about this framework as a way to verify that your suppliers are sustainable. If you're a tour operator, urge your hotels to get sustainable as a way to have continuous improvement that you can verify and you can report upward to your stakeholders, to your owners, to regulators, to anybody, any stakeholder that's curious about how sustainable you are. It's a credible way to do it. And if you're a small-scale operator, just take note that this is sort of coming. And this framework is growing and could help you in the marketplace in the future as more international businesses, but this could be done, at the more regional, even national level, to have this kind of preferential contracting, preferential procurement for sustainability based on this credible system. Finally, destination program. Once the destination criteria were completed, and our friends at BTO and 13 others that helped us with this early adopter program of being the first to apply, we help destinations with a tool, set of tools to help them manage better. We can train their stakeholders on what sustainability means. We advise policymakers on how to manage for sustainability and so forth. We're not a consulting firm, but we provide a brief, high-level advisory service, and then as a destination matures, and if they're ready for certification, we just say, we step away and we advise them to go talk to perhaps a certification body that can take them further along the path towards certification. So we'd like to get people started, or come in just do training at any time, at any level of development for their stakeholders. We're doing that in many places. Our friend Glenn Menzick is here from Thompson, Okanagan, Canada. He's got the next couple of years, a few years of training stakeholders using our framework and our team. So we go off and do destination assessments, not to be confused with certification, but an assessment to let a destination know where do we stand today. A very honest look, very intrusive, tough questions. We don't just ask questions and get verbal answers. We want to see documentation that you're actually practicing those things, so that the higher levels of public policy can see truly what's going on at a destination. What are we truly implementing? What are we truly doing? So we're less about fame and more about thoroughness and honest assessments of where we are. So those are our programs, all driven by the GSTC criteria. Absolutely, all of our work on the GSTC criteria, absolute basis of everything we do. So there's the Spanish language. We just proudly announced or released recently a Spanish language version of our website because the Latin American world is very active, and so we're not going to be translating our website into too many languages. We see Chinese next on the horizon. All of our technical work is done in the English language because you can imagine we're going through these highly technical pieces of assessments and accreditation and so forth. Every word matters. Long discussions can be held on a word or a phrase. So all of the official technical work we've done is done in English. But the criteria are translated to many, many languages. So as you work in other places in the world, have a look at our website. You can find that for non-official, non-technical use, for training and awareness raising in many, many languages. So we're very global, we're very active everywhere. Here's an example at a national level. 1 year ago, this gentleman from Widersak became the Minister of Tourism of Thailand. And I think this is a very interesting case where Thailand, after the Asian financial crisis of the late 1990s, the economy was in deep trouble. And the Prime Minister at that time wisely developed infrastructure, airports, and so forth quickly to bring in foreign currency, and their economy rebounded very quickly. And now we all think of Thailand as such a major destination in the world. But that really happened mostly in the past 20 years. So they had incredible growth. but very typical throughout the world, very little planning and development. BTO is quite progressive in having this orientation for conservation. Does anybody know of another ministry in the world where tourism and natural resources are fused together the way here in Botswana? That's fantastic, very progressive. Based on your recognition that tourism is a big part of your economy and conservation is a big part of your tourism. So it's a very wise structure. That's not common at all. Ministries of environment and ministries of tourism are far apart and not well integrated. In some cases, we talk a lot now these days with the term over-tourism being so popular and so much in vogue. It's hit the mainstream media the last couple of years. It's been happening in many critical places in some cities and cultural heritage sites for a long time. But it hit the mainstream media largely because the last couple of August seasons of Europeans emptying out to go to places and citizens protests in some of the cities, it's gone mainstream. But it's been gradually growing. In our work, as we go around the world looking at public policy makers, we see that in most governments around the world, I'm not talking about Botswana, I'm talking about the global perspective, you can't even say they're managing poorly, they're not managing. This awareness now of over-tourism is actually a big boost. Globally, we're seeing public policy makers at all levels taking notice for the first time that maybe we shouldn't put 100% of our funds or 98% of our funds into promotion only. I'm telling you, I'm talking to governments that's what they've been doing, and it only occurred to them in the last few years that we should actually plan and develop. So I think often we look at so much of this whole discussion from a European perspective, and in much of the world, and outside of progressive BTO, most of the world, people have just come in and out of ministries of tourism, changing ministries, not knowing tourism. The good news is that's changing. So the over-tourism discussion has got the attention of governments around the world. So now they want to look at the SDGs, and now they want to figure this out. So we're seeing good development. And this is pretty radical now. After those 20 years where Thailand really didn't do much planning or development, the Minister of Tourism says now the head count is not as important as following the rules of sustainability. It's very, very exciting. I don't think they've done a tremendous amount yet. That's tangible, they've done a few good things, but the good news is there's an awareness. And the first step, ladies and gentlemen, is awareness, because the awareness globally, with all your stakeholders, think of the people all the way down your staff, through your supply chain, awareness is low. We've got to fix that. Quick thanks to our friend Jonas Pappas on our board of directors. His company is paid for the carbon offsets for this conference. Thank you very much. We encourage all of you to carbon offset your flight to come here. We have very little paper. What's that, Roy?
Filling the survey. To fill in the survey.
Sorry.
The survey with all the information on the flights, so we can carbon offset it.
Fill out the survey. Tell me again.
Yes, so if everyone can fill the survey that has been sent to you, so we can make sure that we offset everyone.
Oh, okay, so he's saying that the post-conference survey, please complete it, that will help us calculate the carbon offset of the conference. Thank you, Roy. So we try to practice what we preach, so we don't have single-use plastic bottles at our events, and we minimize paper militantly, and we do what we can. And we offset the actual physical, on-the-ground activity here. This brings me to my favorite SDG, or did I say that about number 12? Good, you're paying attention. My other favorite SDG is partnerships. We are all about partnerships. We're militant about partnership. We want to harmonize. We don't want to overlap. We don't want to contradict with anyone. That's the essence of this organization. We're an amazingly small organization. You should see the carbon footprint for our office. Zero, because we don't have an office. We're virtual. The little bit of staff we have, we work from home. We operate digitally. The contractors that do the assessments are global experts, so they don't have to fly as far to do the technical work that we're doing. So we have an amazing global network of experts. So we're very virtual, and so we practice what we preach in that regard. So in the interest of partnerships, as I close, I would like GSTC people to stand up and then continue to stand after I call other groups, because for those of you who are new to GSTC, we've got 2 days, a lot of interaction. The breakout sessions, we want to be very informal, and we've asked our moderators and panelists to keep their presentations short enough that every breakout session has synthesis and it has discussion. We want to be interactive, we want to be engaging with you, we want all of us to learn from each other. So in the interest of partnership, again, for those of you new to GSTC, I want to make a few introductions. I'm not going to take the time for names, but members of our board of directors could stand and then stay standing. So members of the GSTC board of directors, please stand so people can see who you are. Giannis. These are our board of directors. Thank you very much. Please stay standing, stay up. Now, any GSTC staff, stay standing. Program directors, assessors, trainers, working group members, everybody that's engaged in GSTC on a regular basis, trainers, keep going, now stand up. Members, GSTC members, please stand up. So we're about, well, just under half, certainly of our international participants, it's more than half. So thank you, please be seated, thank you for standing. So please interact. Let's talk to each other, let's learn from each other, let's make it informal interaction. And through partnership, through awareness raising, through motivation and commitment, we can all make a difference. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to a very good quality 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Randy Durband, the CEO of GSTC. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, we will be going for a refreshment break, networking, which will run concurrently with the press conference for local media. I believe Mr. Samuel Paulo is around to guide the processes and proceedings for the press conference. And this will run until 11 o'clock. From 11 o'clock, we'll be resuming the plenary sessions, which I'll be now heading over to the moderators. But before I sign off, I just remembered something which is very, 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 very critical. You know, when you are requested or asked to come and facilitate a session with the high levels of the former president, the chairman of GSTC, the CEO, and the district commissioner. And when you start talking, you only realize at the end that you did not even introduce yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tabasa Raisu. I'm with Botswana Tourism, and at this juncture, we'll be going on for a break. Thank you.